Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Okay. Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gills, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee.
You sure? It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee?
I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it.
Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the office. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. I am. It was a great night last night. Let me shut this door. It was a great night last night on Table Talk. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. We had Sable Phoenix on and James Bacon. So if you are here in the comments and you're interested to hear them and you weren't here last night, check out Table Talk. In fact, I might as well go ahead and bring that up. Let's see. Share screen. I went private with it over here on this channel because I'm migrating that over to the dedicated Table Talk channel. We now have actually, I think this says 149 subscribers, but I think we have a few more than that now because it updates on my app a little bit earlier than over here. So here is the dedicated Table Talk channel. Please come right over there. So it's the permanent home is now over there. I've been clipping some parts from a discussion with Ahsoka or a discussion about Ahsoka with Doug and Retro Nerd Girl. Retro Nerd Girl may be talking about Ahsoka today on her channel, but we got clips over there. But then if you come down here to live streams, From Where You Dream, right there, that discussion is there, and that will be it's a permanent home. So come over there, listen to it, check it out. You'll get to see James and hear Sable Phoenix. Let's see. Good morning, PH. Good morning. Saw you last night. Good morning. Hello, Tomocrat. Good morning, Lynn. So you missed the grind yesterday. Errands to run. How far did we get? Not far. Good morning, Robert. I was expecting the conversation on mail to last a while. It was a great conversation. The discussions about the AD&D book, we went through the bronze plate as well, which was a disaster. But the discussion about the Dungeons and Dragons Arms and Equipment Guide, that's what we're looking at. That we've got to clip some of those subjects and put them over here on this channel. Let's see. Yeah, not exactly, but close. I tried to watch. I was trying to get to bed after the grind last night, but I couldn't do it. And I did try to watch some of Ahsoka last night. I tried to watch some of episode 6. I was like, I'm tired, but I'll try to start watching. Did I start watching episode 6? I didn't finish it, and basically I don't remember it because I was too tired. So I'm gonna have to start it again tonight. Although Cameron was saying that he was very pro episode 6. But Doug said he was going to watch it last night, and this morning, this morning he texted me a thumbs down. So it was a 4-hour stream. Yeah, it was close to a 4-hour stream last night. Yep. The 5 hours and 6 hours reserved for Star Trek films. We may do Star Trek 6. Doug and I may do Star Trek 6 next Tuesday. No. No. Oh, thank you. Yes. I thought it gave a pretty good look to Table Talk and what we're doing. All right, so there was that going on. So please do come over. I think we're starting to get some more traction on the Table Talk channel. Also over here, this is the I think I forgot to mention this yesterday, but I am trying to remarket the Goodnight Sword book. If you are new around here, this is Goodnight Sword. This is my children's book that is obviously a takeoff of Goodnight Moon, and it's the first book that I've got out that is set in the Tales of Rabavania. And if you are somebody who likes the kinds of stories or Dungeons and Dragons and the kinds of stories we talk about, and you've got a child in your life, whether that's a niece, nephew, son, daughter, friend, who is about the right age for Goodnight Moon, then chances are you would like to read them Goodnight Sword. And if you would like a free copy of the book, you can get it right here. Let me put the link right here, free Goodnight Sword. You can get the PDF right here. And then what I'm doing is I'm remarketing this to go to Indiegogo with it in maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So you can get the free copy of the PDF right there. So you can read it tonight. It can be a bedtime story tonight if you need one. And then in about 2 to 3 weeks, if you would like a hard copy, we'll go to Indiegogo, and then I'll do another print round of hard copies and get those out. So that is going on. Would love to have you for Goodnight Sword there. I am also working on, I've got a countdown over here because I got through a whole bunch of administrative stuff last week. And then I did like 3 days of yard work, trying to get the yard prepared for the winter so it'd be ready for next spring. Still have some stuff to do to that, but man, that I was planning on being outside for like a couple of hours, and then it turned into a whole thing. And then we went through Ahsoka, and I had to edit all of the Ahsoka material in order to clip it and get it out. And then we went into yesterday's discussion. I had to get ready for yesterday's discussion, and then yesterday's major live stream. So now, talk to Brianna too. So now I'm doing 72 hours. I want to do 72 hours where I am focused on the writing side of things. 72 hours. I'm going to try to fast. So I got a countdown here. So this countdown started at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I've got a countdown here. So 3 days. You can do this with me if you want. 72 hours. I'm saying this out loud to everybody now. So that means I got to do it. I've done this before, and then I've tried to do it a couple other times, but failed. So I got a countdown here for a 72-hour fast. and where basically all I'm going to do is write and clean, write and clean the house. That's going to be it. I have got to finish a rewrite of this Christmas story. I'm under a hard deadline here because if I'm going to get this Christmas story out, then I have got to get it done now because we're coming up on Christmas. And then I've got to get the Tales of Rabavania book, RPG book, in a position where Brianna can take it and start laying it out. She's just about ready on her side of things where she can take on a new project and get that done. I've got to get that done to her and then done and to her and then work on the Rabavania script because, Lord, that needs to be done. Brianna just finished a second script of a second draft of her movie script, Dark Goddess, and I got to read that too. She sent that to me 2 nights ago, but I haven't started it yet. But man, so she's got 2 different scripts that are in advanced stages of draft. So she is just blowing past me on that, and I got to fix that. Let's see. Oh, Sable says, I gave a copy to the DM talking about Goodnight Sword, who runs my Saturday night D&D games. He and his wife had a new baby a couple of months ago, and he was excited. That's perfect. Thank you, Sable. That's perfect for that kind of person. That's exactly the kind of person who needs Goodnight Sword. New blood for the Geekverse. Yes. This is a really neat way to keep yourself on track. It's like a gigantic Pomodoro, right? It's like a gigantic Pomodoro, right? So that's just where we're going here. So that is going on. So I'm going to try to keep on track. So this would be great if that'll end on Friday if that goes well. We will try here. All right, what's next? We're going to be looking. I want to look at the War of Art today. And then also we will go over here and start taking a look at the plate armor over here. So let me take this down. So I had an idea on stream last night. We talked about the War of Art on stream last night. Let's see. Let me can I share? Hopefully I can share this ebook. And I was listening to it yesterday, so I'll probably listen to it a lot over the next 72 hours as part of inspiration. But The War of Art is by Stephen Pressfield. Break through the blocks and win your inner creative battle. So if you're over here and you're a creative person who's trying to get stuff done, I recommend the book The War of Art. And it also has a great audio book. We started to talk about it in relation to the From Where You Dream book last night, or in the context of the From Where You Dream book last night. But this is also a really easy read, so it's kind of like this could be our inspiration here. But I think that eventually we might want to talk about this on its own. But Stephen Pressfield, he wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance, which became a movie with Will Smith. Turning Pro, Do the Work. It's nonfiction, but this is probably his most famous nonfiction. The Gates of Fire. The Gates of Fire is probably my favorite book. If you're talking about just a single book, because it gets more complicated if you're talking about like The Lord of the Rings. Is that one book or is it several? Plus The Hobbit and the Silmarillion has all it fit in. So obviously those are my favorites. But if I had to just pick one single novel, that's just one self-contained book, I would pick The Gates of Fire. I love that book. It's about the Battle of Thermopylae. So anyway, each one of these is just each chapter is just like a slight, is just like a page long like this. So here is our inspiration for the morning. Oh, as we breathe and sip. So get your coffee ready. I've got Diet Mountain Dew again this morning. So here we go. Got some caffeination to get going after last night. So here we go. So take 2 deep breaths and 2 deep breaths, deep inhale, complete exhale. And then we will meditate on this passage here. And then as we take 2 sips. So here we go. And sip. All right. So if you're trying to get something done today, here's your inspiration. What I do, I get up, take a shower, have breakfast, read the paper, brush my teeth. If I have phone calls to make, I make them. I've got my coffee now. I put on my lucky work boots and stitch up the lucky laces that my niece Meredith gave me. I head back to my office, crank up the computer. My lucky hooded sweatshirt is draped over the chair with the lucky charm I got from a gypsy in Sainte-Marie de la Mer for only $8 in francs, and my lucky Largo name tag that came from a dream I once had. I put it on. On my thesaurus is my lucky cannon that my friend Bob Versandi gave me from Morro Castle, Cuba. I point it toward my chair so it can fire inspiration into me. I say my prayer, which is the invocation of the muse from Homer's Odyssey, translation by T.E. Lawrence of Arabia, which my dear mate Paul Rink gave me, and which sits by my shelf with the cufflinks that belonged to my father and my lucky acorn from the battlefield at Thermopylae. It's about 10:30 now. I sit down and plunge in. When I start making typos, I know I'm getting tired. That's 4 hours or so. I've hit the point of diminishing returns. I wrap for the day, copy what I've done to disk, and stash the disk in the glove compartment of my truck in case there's a fire and I have to run for it. I power down. It's 3:30. The office is closed. How many pages have I produced? I don't know. I don't care. Are they any good? I don't even think about it. All that matters is I've put my time in and I've hit it with all I've got. All that counts for the day for this session is that I have overcome resistance. So there we go. We've got to overcome resistance. I've got my coffee now. We've got our coffee now. See, I've got my coffee now. Oh, James says, I was reading this in Kindle's desktop app. I didn't know that Kindle did this. And it shows me the most frequently highlighted passages. Pressfield had 40K highlights of a single passage in places, or 40K highlights of single passages in places. That's interesting. I would love to know which ones those are. I didn't know you could do that with the Kindle app. So that's another great way to, a reason you said you took notes in Kindle, because you would also get to know what other people think was important. That's really interesting. Sable says, I didn't get a chance last night to tie all of this into what Butler talks about with superstition and its function in getting into the zone. That's an interesting thing too, because so Pressfield, I would say, has obviously has his superstitions, and he is also religious. But that's just the way that he functions. So anyway, so that is the first passage in The War of Art. Next time, we're going to get into more of what resistance is, because I think of resistance, well, kind of in a religious way, that instead of sin in a religion, the enemy is resistance. Resistance is anything that's stopping you from becoming everything that you should be. All right. See, that's, one of the reasons why I use Kindle. Another reason is I can keep chronological notes by chapter. Who needs superstition when you've got coffee? All right, so let's go over here. Let's turn on this light. Let's see what's going on with this book. Go, auxiliary camera. Okay, I got junk. I may spend like 20 minutes before I jump into writing this afternoon. Like 20 minutes getting my office actually clean. So something like it's a place where work can be done. Because I have to shuffle every time I want to set something down. All this stuff around here. All right. So let me move this. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Arms and Equipment Guide. We have been talking about this book in the context of, in some ways, how bad it is, but because it came out in 1991 and refers to a bunch of earlier books on arms and equipment, and apparently there's a lot of stuff in here that doesn't reference anything and just seems completely made up, which is okay. I mean, because you'd say this is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, it's fantasy. There's going to be stuff in here that's made up. That's okay. But we were trying to figure out, and sometimes it's very difficult to figure out, what is just completely fabricated what they're trying to look at, or what they're trying to say accurately, but there's the state of knowledge about medieval weapons and armor was not very good at the time compared to where we are now. And so they're just drawing erroneous conclusions or looking at something wrong, interpreting something in a way that we don't interpret it in a certain way today. And all of that gets mashed up in this book. And so it's very hard to determine where it's coming from, but it's also interesting from that historical perspective about what did people think. And obviously a lot of the terminology and the way people think about weapons and armor have been influenced a lot by things like fantasy and Dungeons and Dragons. But man, I would not recommend this book if you're trying to learn something about armor here. We had just talked about plate mail and whatever that is. This bronze plate. You check out yesterday, this bronze plate mail. It's a man. This is probably one of the worst passages so far in this book, because I don't even know what they're talking about when you're trying to talk about bronze plate mail. So we just talked about what they call plate mail, which I hate, but plate armor. And now, but they have full plate armor right here. So what do they say about this? Field plate is actually a more commonly used form of full plate, described later. It consists of shaped and fitted metal plates riveted and interlocked to cover the entire body. Like plate mail, a set of field plate usually includes gauntlets, boots, and a visored helmet. See helms. A thick layer of padding must be worn under the armor. Campaign use. This armor is rarely used, except by noble knights on a military campaign. In theory, the bulk of a set of field plate is so evenly distributed over the whole body that the encumbrance rating of the field plate compares quite favorably with that of plate mail and banded mail. In practice, the increased protection is paid for with a reduced mobility and increased fatigue. Each suit of this extremely rare and expensive armor is custom made and fitted for its prospective owner. Only a master armorer can create field or full plate armor, and only a master armorer can resize captured pieces of a suit for a new owner. The new owner must be at least a similar size and build as the previous owner, or the effort required to modify the pieces in question exceeds the expense and effort necessary in forging an entirely new set. Aside from its expense, the main disadvantage of field plate armor is the lack of ventilation through the suit, which makes moisture and fungus a problem. Oh, we got problems with fungus here? And the time required to take it on and take it off. As detailed in the AD&D 2nd Edition Player's Handbook, which we've also been referencing, 1d6 plus 4 rounds are required to dress in field plate armor with outside assistance. Triple that amount of time is required if the wearer is alone. Similarly, it takes 1d4 plus 1 rounds to remove such armor, and half that time if pressed for time or assisted by an attendant. Field plate armor is typically used by high knights of a kingdom, like King Arthur's legendary Knights of the Round Table, for everything except formal ceremonies and triumphant battle celebrations. Full plate armor is reserved for such occasions where style is more important than combat. Okay. Field plate can be fixed much more cheaply and easier than full plate, and is built to withstand the rigors of long-term use in combat. The entire body is encased in metal plates, and even the joints are protected with metal caps and sturdy chainmail. A great helm bearing the emblem of the house name of a legendary knight is common, and one of the few ways a knight can recognize friend and foe at a distance. Field plate, while expensive and painstakingly crafted by master armorers, is normally not adorned with many trappings or embellishments. Since legendary knights make a habit of battling great armies and dragons almost daily, their armor rarely lasts longer than a year without needing to be completely replaced. Once again, they're really on this disposable armor type stuff. But I guess that might be the case if you are fighting. This is what Sable brought up. If you have a habit of battling great armies and dragons nearly daily. A DM may decide that being allowed to wear full plate or that field plate or full plate is a sign of nobility or knighthood in his campaign. As such, in such campaigns, wealthy warriors had better have a legitimate noble crest or recognized royal patron before parading themselves about town. Optional rule. This rule may be invoked if a player insists on wearing badly repaired or patchwork plate mail. Following every strong jolt to the wearer, whether from a good hit in battle or a fall from a cliff, the material binding the patchwork plate to the backing, as stated at the time of repair, must make a saving throw versus crushing blow. Failure means the saving throw versus what makes it? The armor? No, the material binding the patchwork plate to the backing, as stated at the time of repair, must make a saving throw versus crushing blow. I think that was in the DMG. I think there were different item saving throws in the DMG. Failure means the plate comes off, while success means the next saving throw is made with a -1 penalty to the roll. Note that this penalty is cumulative, so any patchwork plate is bound to fall apart eventually. What are people saying over here? Sable says, if coffee tasted like it smells, I'd probably be addicted to it, but it doesn't. It's vile. You know, I used to never drink, I used to not really drink coffee, and then I would never drink it black, but now I drink black coffee. And it was because I went to a coffee tasting when I was trying to design the Cultist coffee bags, the Cultist coffee itself. What was that Cultist coffee going to taste like? I went to a coffee tasting, which I had never done before. And the coffee tasting was just as sophisticated as wine tastings are. And then I figured out how to actually taste coffee. And then, like, instantly, all I do is drink black coffee anymore. Oh, Lynn is with me on that. Can it be both rare and custom made? Yeah, you think of the guy who's making his living making custom armor would want to make a lot of it. The fungus here. Yeah, that's fun that we're going to have trouble with fungus in this suit. I mean, yes. Doesn't Lynn say fungus doesn't need much encouragement, just moisture and minimum source of nutrition? But, you know, yeah, like your sub-armorless and whatever it is that you're wearing, you know, underneath it. But you dry that out to prevent that from happening. I have had leather mold, though. Yeah, again, pure fabrication. You're never going to wear a suit of plate for 24 hours a day. Yeah, and once again, I'm not exactly sure what they are trying. Well, actually, this right here, we got. Does anybody else have this this coloring book? We talked about this coloring book yesterday as well. I said this one was influential on me, and this is not the copy I had as a kid. I rebought it because I bought it for my nephews because it's such a great book. It's from 1985, but it's such a great book, stepping through different looks of arms and armor throughout history. And I think this is how I developed a understanding of what the evolution of armor was like. I was trying to figure out what they're trying to say is field plate. So they've got something called plate mail, field plate, and then we're going to go on to full plate armor. Something like this, maybe what they're calling plate mail. Or maybe this right here, this which I also like the look of right here. If you're talking about full field plate, maybe they're talking about something like this. But they have to combine all these different armors from a whole bunch of time periods and a whole bunch of cultures. And then probably by the time you're getting to something like this, or this over here, that's going to be your full plate. But I don't think I think they're making a distinction across time. Like this is late 1533. But this is probably what they're talking about with their full plate. But they're, like I said, I think it's a temporal thing, not necessarily distinctions that necessarily would have been made at a certain time, because you know this is the pinnacle of your armoring art. You know, 1400 looks pretty good, but that wouldn't have been used at the same time as that. There's 120 years difference between there. But D&D has never really cared about that. It puts it all in there. Oh, James, you ordered this coloring book? Ordered this coloring book yesterday. I've never owned it. I'm excited to get it. Stray says, getting new armor and repairing it was often an excuse to use your treasure in town or a keep. Back then, spent treasury equals XP. Armor continued to get more sophisticated until the 16th century, at which time gunpowder weapons rendered it largely obsolete. But they still did joust in it. How far does this go as an example? I don't even know. English Civil War soldier. See, German tilting armor right here. I'm pretty sure this isn't for battlefield use. That by the time you get into like a German jousting armor of 1580, because even in the Victorian ages, in the Victorian age they had basically their own SCA. We talked about the SCA. They basically had their own SCA where they made all of this stuff, but by then it wasn't used in battle. And that's unfortunately when people talk about a lot of jousting, they're reenacting really late period jousting when it's actually its own sport and it's not something that's actually practicing for combat, which I think is safer because you got to wear a lot more armor. But I always liked like Ivanhoe, like Lynn. We're talking about Ivanhoe. I love that Ivanhoe movie because they're jousting in it, and there's the element of this is a game, it's a tournament, right? But it's still the time period where this is also practice for war. I love that. Full plate. So full plate, AC1. Description: full plate armor is the best armor a warrior can buy, both in appearance and protection. The perfectly fitted interlocking plates are specifically angled to deflect arrows and blows, and the entire suit is carefully adorned with rich engraving and embossed detail. Campaign use. Suits of full plate armor are as rare as powerful magic items in most fantasy campaigns. Although in some fantasy campaigns, magic items aren't particularly rare. So I guess that's but anyway, as rare as powerful, it does say powerful, as rare as powerful magic items in most fantasy campaigns. Magical sets of full plate are artifacts to be treasured and hidden away, the objects of glorious quests. In most campaigns, the number of sets of full plate can be counted as easily as the number of crowned knights who owe their allegiance to the king. In many kingdoms, it's a crime to possess a set of full plate armor without royal permission, and a wise king keeps any armorer capable of such craftsmanship at his beck and call. Full plate armor is one of the greatest gifts a lord can bestow upon his followers. Its prize is coveted for the status it confers as well as its monetary value. A suit of full plate armor will often be a gift presented to great knights upon whose service to the realm, or as an incentive to attract a knight errant of unquestioned prowess to the king's private circle. In addition, full plate armor is the most technologically advanced armor available in later medieval and high chivalry settings. The special touches and custom enhancements added by a few living master armorers are what gives full plate armor its increased armor class rating over the more traditional forms of field plate. At prices that start at 4,000 gold pieces for a simple, unadorned suit, full plate armor represents the crowning achievement of the armorer's ultimate goal, to forge for man a new skin of steel, as flexible as his own, but as invulnerable to anything in the land. This increased protection comes only with a price. While full plate armor wears well when correctly fitted, it's cumbersome to don or remove without assistance. Herein enters the attendant. For most knights, the attendant is a vassal or squire who attends to the knight's every need. He sharpens the lord's sword and brushes his horse. However, the great knight chooses his attendant carefully, for he knows his life may depend on this decision. Without the assistance of a capable attendant, the knight requires 1d10 plus 10 rounds to don his armor. An attendant cuts this time in half. As most combat veterans know, cutting the average armoring time in half can mean the difference between being in the battle and missing it entirely. If you're about to miss the battle, you might not put this on. Oh, yeah. Sable says the Winged Hussars, we were talking about them the other day. Charge at the Battle of Vienna was post-gunpowder. Yes, they won. It was the largest cavalry charge in history, and they routed the siege. Yeah, the fancy stuff for jousts hung around much longer. Hey, Benjamin. Benjamin says, late to the party, so I checked around a bit, and Dark Eye 5th edition and RuneQuest have similar products that are recent. Okay. So we talked about that. We might want to look at a more recent version of this. So let me make note of that over someplace. Actually, I'll just make a note of it on the computer. So we need Dark Eye 5th edition. And RuneQuest weapons and equipment. That would be really interesting to see if we how you get a much better pike and shot era of warfare. If somebody has a new, more accurate kind of book on this subject. So warriors in a hurry can cut this. Thank you, Benjamin. Warriors in a hurry can cut this dressing in time by half again. The ramifications of haste is the knight and his attendant, who are extremely lucky, might at best be able to get dressed in only 3 rounds. The best roll of 1 adds 10, and add 10 equals 11 rounds. 11 rounds cut in half for the attendant's assistance equals 6 rounds. 6 rounds half again for rushing yields 3 rounds. However, a knight hurrying in this manner suffers penalty in combat. His straps are not adjusted correctly, meaning his plates are too loose or too tight, and will hamper his overall effectiveness in battle. The knight suffers a -1 to attack rolls, and his armor class likely drops 1 place, meaning his hastily dressing has given him his armor an equivalent of protection of field plate. If a knight discovers that his loose fittings are causing him to miss the mark or be struck by his enemies too often, he needs only spend as many rounds tightening his straps as he neglected by rushing his preparations. Twice that if unattended, of course. So, for example, Sir Huger rolls a 6 on a d10 when attempting to don his armor, thus needing 16 rounds. An attendant reduces this to 8 rounds, and rushing further reduces it to 4 rounds. The rushing penalty would be removed if Sir Huger took 4 rounds attended or 8 rounds unattended to readjust his armor. There you go. Don't you hate it when you charge into battle and find out your codpiece is on backwards or upside down? And multi. So then it does have some of the more fantasy types of armor here. So obviously you've got, this is going to be the Dungeons and Dragons approach to this, which I think is fine. So Gnomish, this is one of the weirder ones. Gnomish workman's leather armor. Has anyone actually encountered this in Dungeons and Dragons before or worn it? It says Gnomish workman's leather armor is a variation of high-quality Gnomish leather armor as described in the equipment chapter of the Complete Fighter's Handbook. Gnomish armor is in the Complete Fighter's Handbook? Gnomish workman's leather is adorned with dozens of tiny tool holders and pouches, typically filled with the most bizarre collections of coins, nails, tools, weapons, widgets, and sprockets ever assembled on one body. For this reason, a set of Gnomish workman's leather provides protection identical to studded leather armor. AC 7. Campaign use. Typically, Gnomish workman's leather is as silent as normal high-quality Gnomish leather armor. No thieving skill armor adjustment. However, this is before a Gnomish workman has gotten anywhere near it. As with most things of Gnomish design, the whole is a rather sundry compilation of many disjointed parts. Strange inventions, secret compartments, locked and trapped pockets, and a dizzying array of tool holders and layered item racks are added, modified, moved, and camouflaged almost daily. From week to week, a gnomish workman's armor may change drastically in appearance and function. The armor has a stowage capacity of 10 pounds, up to half of which can be considered hidden. Importantly, the special benefits of gnomish high-quality leather armor is the cost is lost when a gnomish workman begins collecting items to tuck into this leather garb. While a few items on the belt do not significantly ruin this feature of the base armor, enough gadgets alter the base armor class cannot help but clink and bang into each other, crinkle and spill out when the owner bends over, or accidentally drop off or explode in the most heated battle or fight. Are you hopefully not wearing anything that's going to explode? Yeah, anybody try creating this? Anybody got your widget armor? Sounds like a precursor to Inspector Gadget. It does. However, this is actually one of the better pictures. We've said that we've had some very uneven quality in our illustrations over here, trying to illustrate what it is that we're talking about. I actually even think these are, I mean, we can talk about this. We've got a Eastern influence, it looks like, on this full plate armor over here. I mean, this is, again, they don't give a very historical example of what they're trying to go for here. And it looks like it has like Chinese or Japanese influence too. It's kind of strange. Especially with like these teeth here. This guy's got some kind of weird teeth. And nostrils on his armor. But this one does actually show you what it's talking about. So that's one of the better illustrations of what it is we're talking about. Outside of gnomish society, this type of armor has rarely been seen among non-gnomes. Humans and elves rarely steal things they cannot use unless hired to do so, and dwarves, who might squeeze into a suit if offered, find the concept too distasteful and the appearance much too garish for their otherwise stoic tastes. Halflings have displayed a weakness for such secret compartments found in gnomish workman's leather, and halfling thieves in particular might treasure this type of armor above all else. Indeed, the black market for gnomish workman's leather is rumored to be funded entirely by halfling-run thieves' guilds. This only adds fuel to any fire of discontent between halflings and gnomish clans. In human settlements and cities, gnomes only don workman's leather when working privately, deep in their secret workshops, since no one around them either appreciates or respects the trappings of master craftsmen, there seems to be little need to flaunt them. Within a gnomish clan, however, there is a constant competition among all gnomish craftsmen, among both masters and apprentices. In some clans, these competitions have become formalized with actual categories: most items carried, best personal trap, most secure pouch, nicest appearance, etc., and prizes, clan contracts, or a special badge to be sewn onto the armor. These contests are held on high festival days, much like a merchant's bazaar. Just another special guild tradition to confuse the newcomer or overnight visitor. In the largest of clans, many competing craftsmen's guilds might sponsor or support individual designs or candidates. Every craftsman in the hall will spend long nights tinkering with his own armor to emulate or duplicate the desired effects. For those who succeed, will claim partial credit for testing and perfecting the basic design. Those who fail might offer small sums of gold for the secret of their new inventions. That's some world building right there, isn't it? Lynn says, I think the aesthetic of the armor in a fantasy campaign should be tweaked to fit the particular campaign setting. Well, yes. This is kind of, and this has a further disadvantage of being just generic Dungeons and Dragons, right? So I don't think we've actually been talking about any particular world, even within Dungeons and Dragons, much less any particular location within Dungeons and Dragons. Now I have a mental picture of gnomes parading down the runway in their armor. Yeah, what about the prize for most explosive? So here we get to Elven Chainmail. AC 5. I actually thought that was kind of low. Elven Chainmail is only AC 5 canonically in Dungeons and Dragons. Descriptions. Elven Chainmail is the only form of armor made of a legendary elven alloy, a lightweight silvery steel of great strength. Even without enchantment, Elven Chainmail is typically half the weight of its human-forged counterpart. The elves guard the secret of making elven chainmail with more ferocity than they protect even their own children. In the entire millennia-long history of the elven race, the number of elven armorers who learned the secrets of forging elven steel can be counted on but one hand. Needless to say, these masters of the art tend to be ancient in the extreme, and their choice of apprentices comes but once in every 1,000 years. This is the highest honor accorded to any single elf, save being chosen by his peers to lead the elven race. Apprenticeship is not a gift bestowed by a wealthy or powerful, but chosen by magical testing and secret ceremony. Some outsiders would argue that training makes the armorer, but tradition holds great sway in elven circles. Human and dwarven armorers have been able to divine at least some of the secrets of the elven armorers, but not the most important ones. They know, for example, that mithril silver, that part of mithril which gives the purest of metals its glimmer in the moonlight, is somehow alloyed with other materials. The process of alloying has never been duplicated outside of an elven master forge, but most armorers believe some form of magical manipulation is involved in the process somewhere. Furthermore, anyone hoping to forge elven armor must be able to see the magical emanations radiating from it. While this may be done artificially through magic, the task is geared more toward elves' natural eyesight. Drow armorers, described later, work under similar conditions. Naturally, when one has 1,000 years to perfect the skills for one's job, just about anything is within grasp. The dwarves call this an unfair advantage, while humans don't even bother trying anymore. Life is too short, they feel, to waste time on creating things that would be easier stolen or discovered in a dragon's hoard. Elven chainmail is used by elven troops, both cavalry and infantry. It's common among the gray, fairy elves, and advanced elven cultures, but less common among the high elves. It's extremely rare among the wood elves. Since the material is so strong and valuable, in those rare instances where a suit of elven mail is damaged to the point of needing repair, the suit is never discarded but returned to the armorer for repair or replacement. But the number of suits estimated to exist by human military planners and master armorers, the best estimates are that it might take upwards of 10 years to make one suit of elven mail. Otherwise, they reason there'd be a lot more of the armor in use by the elves, and many more suits would be found in the lairs and treasure hoards across the realm. Yeah, Lynn says, yeah, AC 5 sounds kind of low for elven mail. Lynn says, as much as I love world building, I'm not sure that it belongs in a source book on arms and armor. You want to be more generic and let the GM do their own world building. Yeah, this book is trying to do a lot of things. This book is not exactly clear on exactly what it's trying to do. It's trying to do a bunch of things. I mean, it's trying to be a general reference, which means it's, like I said, we thought this book was pretty cool when we had it. It was one of the only books that we ever had like this. And I remember thinking that some things in it was strange at the time, but not nearly as much as I do now. Just regular mail. See, banded mail. Yeah, so see, yeah, there's no difference there. Mail is AC 5. So elven mail that's talking about it's so good is also AC 5. But it says it's typically half the weight of its human forged counterpart. So unless you're really working with your encumbrance, this being half the weight, probably isn't going to come up in the game all that often. So there is magical elven chainmail. So not just elven mail, but magical elven chainmail. Ordinary elven chainmail is rare in the extreme, but magical elven chain is so precious a gift that only a handful of suits have ever rumored to exist anywhere but in the royal elven hands. In addition to the normal weight and flexible advantages of elven chain, magical elven chain is so weightless that it can be worn under one's normal clothing. So we're talking about Bilbo's shirt of mail here. It can be comfortable. It is so comfortable and unrestricted that it can be worn constantly even while sleeping. Magical elven chain is so soft to the touch that it can be worn without any padding beneath it. This makes magical elven chain the ideal armor for travelers, excluding only the greatest of knights, who by tradition prefer plate armor over all others. For rogues especially, a set of magical elven chainmail is a more prized possession than even full plate armor +1. Adventurers have lost their lives over the mere rumors of magical elven chain. So it does have to do exclusively with the weight. So this is half the weight, and then extremely rare in the extreme is weightless elven mail. But it doesn't appear to have any higher AC. Well, you're right, Sable. So Sable says, in this version of D&D, encumbrance played a much bigger role than it does in 5e when it's nearly ignored. So Elven Chain would be very valuable in letting you get out of the dungeon carrying more loot. That's true. Lynn says, in games that don't bother with encumbrance, though, Elven Chainmail is just regular chainmail with a press agent. No, right. So Lynn says, Tolkien never explicitly said that Bilbo's mail shirt was magical. It was made of mithril, though, which has its own special properties. Right, the mithril mail. And the ability to make things out of mithril was the big deal. And the ability to make that was lost. That's actually more like over here. But I was talking about for the idea this is the weightless stuff that can be worn under your clothes. That seems, I would guess that's the inspiration stuff over here. The inspiration of it would probably have been Bilbo's mail over here. I always figured that mithril in Tolkien was naturally really soft. That's what makes it easy to work. I always thought that it must be really soft, like maybe as soft and malleable as gold, or maybe even more so, which makes it really easy to work. But then the magical part of that is doing something to it. You got to do something that hardens it. That seemed to make sense to me. I have no particular reason to, no source for that. But I figured that in its natural state, if you found mithril, it would be very workable. So you could do all kinds of things with it, but you can't make armor out of it because you don't know the secret of hardening it. So, but we do have drow chainmail. So drow mail does have an AC 1 higher. Because remember, low ACs are good in this. Drow chainmail higher than elven chainmail. So we got some drow over here. By the way, looking at the pictures here, I need a better picture of this elf. Drow chainmail. Though we've got these drow having downed this beholder over here. I believe it does, James. So it's AC4. Description: Drow chainmail is finely crafted satiny black metal mesh that does not encumber its wearer in the least. Oh, well, there we go. So that's also important. So we got better AC. And it says it does not encumber its wearer in the least. It's similar, but not identical to the magical elven chainmail described previously. It's typically fashioned only into tunics, as drow elves share their forest-bound cousins' preference for armor that adequately protects without being overly weighty or restrictive. Now, what kind of sense does that make? If it doesn't encumber you in the least, then why would you not do like what these guys are doing over here and also have chausses? Especially if you're going to be fighting things. But it says, okay, mainly tunics of drow chainmail. So these are the exceptional guys over here. When I was saying yesterday, I don't think I pulled this up, but mail disintegrate in sunlight, yeah. So this is realistically, Lynn says, realistically, that suggests that mithril arms and armor were made out of alloys, not pure mithril. That could be. It could be the alloy that hardens it. Could be. We're never told, but I think that if I were writing up a source book and I needed more information on it, that's the way I would go. Draconesian in 7th C. Its natural form is sort of like a clay-like substance. The notion that Ezian is the only ones who figured out how to harden it and forge it into a metal stronger than steel and lighter than cork. Oh, forged Draconesian will float on water, but is functionally indestructible. Interesting. Is that dragon ice? Well, that is neat. So campaign use. Much like their cousins in the sunlight, the Drow have invented their own special armor. What is known for certain is that Drow chainmail uses adamantite, the strongest metal known, the principal component of their mystical alloy. It's mined by a myriad of Drow-allied races in great quantities, and the Drow war machine is wholly dependent on the adamantite-related technologies. This alloy has special properties due to its particular nature of the radiation emanating from the Drow homeland, giving even the basest form of the alloy the equivalent of a magical +1. Drow weapons, shields, armor, etc. all begin with a +1 bonus, and based on the alloy, the amount of time spent in the forge, and the secret process used, it can increase to as much as +5. The alloy does not radiate magic in the traditional way. A detect magic spell reveals no trace of magical properties. Whenever Drow alloyed creations, including armor, here you go, James. Whenever Drow alloyed creations, including armor, are exposed to direct sunlight, their magical bonuses are immediately lost, and they begin to utterly and irrevocably decay. This happens even after one short exposure, meaning that even a set of Drow armor that is immediately returned to utter darkness or the nearest Drow homeland will still decay. Physical decay begins in 1d12 plus 8 days after exposure to sunlight. The armor completely falls apart in another 1d12 days after another 1d12 days have passed. So that is quite restrictive. Oh, it's Dragon Iron. Draken Eisen. So Dragon Iron. Well, maybe we should put Dragon Ice someplace else. Draken Eisen. So that's quite a limitation to your Drow armor. If extraordinary precautions are taken, adventurer could theoretically use a set of Drow armor if worn only in the dead of night and return to complete darkness. Oh, it could be out at night. Like a light-proof chest or vault before the break of day. However, the armor must be returned to the Drow homeland once every 2 weeks to be re-exposed to the radiation. Armor must remain in the homeland 2 days per day spent above ground. If the armor is not returned to the Underdark before 2 weeks have passed, the magic of the armor is permanently lost. Decay then begins as described above. This is very limiting. The fragments of metal that remain after the Drow armor deteriorates may be collected and reused for future forging. However, the metal is non-magical until the forging process imbues the enchantment. The surface elves contend that these conditions are poor workmanship on the part of the Drow, but scholars have noted particular parallels between elven and Drow alloys. For example, one possibility is just as strange magical emanations of the Drow homeland aid in the construction of their special adamantite objects, it has been surmised that moonlight, pure and cool, may have something to do with the forging of elven mithril armor. The fact that mithril is reflective, light, and pure as adamantite is dull, heavy, and dense has not escaped observation. The fact that mithril is as reflective, light, and pure as adamantite is as dull, dense, and heavy. Okay, it is certain. What is certain about the two magical types of armor is that such parallels cannot be sheer coincidence. Somewhere in the distant past, the two races, when times were better and before the Dark Elves retreated to the earthen depths, there may have been one common armor technology. The Drow took the secret of forging elven metals with them when they left, but had to discover something to replace both the mithril and moonlight components of the ancient secret art. What they eventually discovered, perhaps after many centuries of experimentation, was a magical alloy more abundant than mithril, yet not as stable as elven chain. Lynn says, hypothesis. Drow armor has low energy molecular bonds that are easily broken by the UV in sunlight. Ah, interesting. Sable says, haha, I love making headcanon physics explanations for fantasy materials. I don't know this word. Arsenosters? It would fit the Drow vibe. Arsenic armor. Robert says, cool background on the Drow armor. Yeah, I remember like thinking these were some of the better pages. The elven stuff, the fantasy stuff. Like so we do have the problem that like what world is it exactly for? But that's some of the most fun stuff, I think. Dwarven plate is AC2. The forged black iron plate made by dwarves exclusively for their own warrior leaders is both heavy and unattractive by humans and elven standards. However, dwarves have traditionally placed less emphasis on appearance than on personal defense. Dwarven warriors who wear dwarven plate are often called waddling cauldrons by their enemy due to the bulk of their armor. For campaign use, as detailed in both the Complete Fighter's Handbook and the Castle Guide, high-quality dwarven plate is the boilerplate version of human plate armor. It's 50% heavier than equivalent mails, making a single suit of dwarven-sized plate mail armor weigh approximately the same as a set of human-sized plate mail. Additionally, the denser armor affords a protection equivalent to plate mail +1, and the armor itself saves against equipment damage at +6, in addition to any bonuses permitted if the dwarven plate in question is also magically enchanted. Stories about dwarven plate armor withstanding the melting fires of a red-hot dragon's breath may be boastful exaggeration, but it's also an established fact that dwarven plate armor survives an attack that its wearer does not. As mentioned, dwarves prize combat effectiveness over a warrior's appearance. It's therefore very rare for the iron appearance of a dwarven plate mail to be adorned in any way. So dwarves don't appreciate art, according to this. Much like the elves, dwarves do not make dwarven plate for non-dwarves. Not only is it considered impractical to spend one's time building a suit of armor no dwarf can ever hope to wear, a waste of time, but the dwarves will admit to having no skill in working the peculiarities of the human body. Dwarves tend to ignore such things as flexible joints, as their range of movement is already restricted by nature. An ancient dwarven warrior's saying goes something like, if it doesn't fit, bend it. If it still doesn't fit, break it. Along those lines, another popular dwarven saying is, never let your armor impede a good fight. Hey, regular Jeff. Lynn says, sure, but that waddling cauldron will mop the floor with you. I like my dwarves, I guess, willing to be a bit more artistic craftsmen, I guess, than this is giving them credit for. Right. Lynn says, dwarves are not appreciating art is definitely not derived from either Tolkien or Germanic mythology. Because I would say the dwarven craftsman, like if it doesn't fit, then it needs to go back to their workshop to for adjustment. Dwarven field or full plate does not exist. Not only would a dwarf look like a miniature iron golem when so protected, but dwarves would prefer to let their facial expressions speak for them in combat. And in Tolkien, they had the masks. The problem of free movement plays a big part in this practical decision as well. No human has ever managed to convince a group of dwarves to forge a set of full plate armor for them. If such a task were even to get past the bargaining phase, it would quickly become apparent to all concerned that dwarves had no experience or knowledge in such constructions and lacked the motivation to learn it. Dwarves themselves claim they'd rather be beating the hammers on orc skulls, than beating them at the forge. Really? Dwarves themselves claim they'd rather be beating their hammers on orc skulls than beating them at the forge. Curiously, gnomes have offered to give full plate their best shot from time to time, but so far, no human has been brave or foolish enough to accept that offer. Dwarven plate mail lasts longer than its human counterpart. As detailed in the Complete Fighter's Handbook, dwarven plate armor mail can sustain twice as many points of damage as normal plate mail if the optional damage point system presented in there is being used. Magical dwarven plate mail. Magical dwarven plate mail is only as encumbering as ordinary plate mail. The enchantment is cumulative with the natural +1 to armor class the dwarven plate possesses. Therefore, dwarven plate mail +1 is actually equivalent to ordinary plate mail +2 for purposes of armor class, but not saving throws. It might be easier for the DM and player if the base armor class for dwarven plate is remembered to be 1, equivalent to field plate armor for humans. That's right, Benjamin. Bilbo's mithril shirt was made by dwarves. It was made for an elven prince. That's where I was getting that from. So it was made for an elven prince, but it was made by the dwarves. Yes. I can't believe I forgot that. Thank you for calling that out. Yeah, it is, right? Because that's... hang on. Is that in The Hobbit? It was in Smaug's treasure hoard. Yeah, it's weird that D&D is directly referencing the Lord of the Rings here, but got it switched. The dwarves were the only ones who could forge true silver and mithril, not the elves. You're right, they switched it. Where do we find that? Yeah, I can't find it, but I think that is absolutely correct. Would have been before that. Somebody else will be able to verify that. Sable says the elves weren't concerned about such things as treasures, but the dwarves loved them. Oh, let's see how much time we got here. We see we got shields. Some of this may not be all that important to go over. Helmets, and then mounts, equipment, and mounts. Let's go to the end of this chapter. Let's see here. So shields. AC plus 1 AC. Shields ordinarily improve a character's armor class by 1 or more if magical. Shields cannot be used to block attacks from the rear or rear flanks. A buckler, known as a target shield, is a small round shield of wood or metal that fastens to the forearm. Although, you know, I hold like buckler, like I've got a buckler up there, and I've never actually seen a buckler, or at least in use, that people are strapping to the forearm. That seems to be something that comes up in fantasy, like D&D, quite a bit. But most of the time, or every time I've ever seen a buckler used, you're actually holding it in your hand. Lord Fullmind says shields are criminally underused in AD&D. They are. I used one often as a cleric because I wanted the plus 1 AC bonus. So, I mean, it is plus 1 AC, but they're not the shields are not developed very well. Because of its small size, approximately 1 inch in diameter, 1 foot in diameter for a buckler protects against 1 attack per melee round. The user can choose which attack he wishes to use his buckler against, but he must declare this intention before the attack roll has been made. This increases the defender's armor class only by 1 or more if magical against that single attack, which is a lot of trouble. That, yeah, you have to declare like this. This buckler is active. It's actually active on the player. Now you have to remember that I guess your AC would be 1 less, and that once per attack you can increase your AC by 1, which isn't all that great. Sable says shields were better in 3.5. Do the D&D rules even allow for things like shield bashes? I think they do. Probably in combat and tactics, they probably had stuff about shield bashes. Sable says 3.5 had the most detailed weapon and armor list of all the D&D versions. So bucklers should be treated not as full shields when determining the armor class of the user. Oh, that's what I was just talking about. More as a special item that can be called upon to add an extra protection for 1 attack per round. Small shield. A small shield is usually round and carried on the forearm, gripped with the shield hand. It is lightweight as compared to a medium shield. Permits the user to carry other items in that hand, although he cannot wield or carry another weapon. A small shield, approximately 2 feet in diameter, can be used to protect against 2 frontal attacks of the user's choice. Like a buckler above, the user has to choose which attacks to use his shield against, but must decide before the attacks are rolled. I say that's a lot of trouble. As far as gaming it out at the table, like the buckler, the small shield should be considered a special item used for defense, not a general addition to frontal armor class. Whereas a medium shield is carried in the same manner as a small shield on the forearm. Unlike the small shield, however, its weight prevents the character from using the shield hand for anything other than carrying his medium shield. Medium shields are usually made of metal, range from 3 feet to 4 feet in diameter. They're usually made of metal. Range from 3 feet to 4 feet in diameter and can be any shape from round to square to spread dragon's wings. A typical medieval shield resembles a triangle with one point facing downward, the classic heater shape. With a medium shield, a character can defend against any number of frontal or rear-facing attacks. Can defend against any number of frontal or flanking attacks in a given round. In this instance, the character applies the +1 armor class bonus, not including magical bonuses, for the shield to his overall armor class rating, providing he remembers to disregard the shield bonus during the occasional attack from the rear. Yeah, I would make shields more important. The active part of this defense much more important. But it seems like shields were just kind of added on in the AD&D rules. .5 had shield bash rules. It was treated as an offhand weapon. 5e just counts it as an improvised weapon. Lord Fullmind says, yeah, combat and tactics definitely had rules for shield stuff. We're seeing 5e simplification disregard interesting options. Lynn says, that doesn't feel right from a historical perspective. Use of a shield was integral to actual medieval combat. Lynn says, what else are you going to carry in your shield hand, even with a buckler? Your cell phone? The only thing I can think of, or what I was thinking of when it said that, I was like, what else are you going to be carrying? Like javelins. I guess it's talking about like, well, you could have a javelin or something else in that hand, to throw with the other hand. I don't know. So body shield. The body shield, also known as the kite or tower shield, is a massive metal or wooden shield reaching nearly from chin to the toe of the user. It must be firmly fastened to the forearm, and the shield must be firmly gripped at all times. Naturally, this precludes the use of the shield hand for anything but holding the body shield in place. Standing around 6 feet tall, the body shield provides a deal of protection to the user, improving his overall armor class of the character by 1 against melee attacks and 2 against missile attacks. As with all shields, these defensive bonuses apply only against frontal flanking attacks. Almost like you should use that more for cover, like covering rules. Like you'd think that you'd have a lot of AC against incoming missile attacks if you're under a shield like that. Since the body shield is very heavy, the DM may want you to use the optional encumbrance system if he uses it in the campaign. Well, here's talking about optional encumbrance. This will help prevent overuse of body shields in combat. It also makes the elven mail more valuable. So, but yeah, it does. Shields are just kind of like an add-on, an afterthought. Most of the time, most shields just be a medium shield. Okay, take +1 to your AC. And try to remember to subtract an AC when you're attacked from behind. Helms also kind of like an extra. Helms are part of a warrior's basic protection. Failure to use proper gear leaves a character open to called shots by opponents or to other disadvantages at the DM's option. So again, it's an add-on. So what's a disadvantage to wearing a helmet? Why would you not wear a helmet? Well, that you may be targeted with a called shot to the head or other disadvantages that as the game master sees fit. So kind of implying that if you're not using called shots to the head, well, maybe the helmet's not that important in most situations. Or you could, I don't remember how to do that. How do you make called shots? That might be in the Complete Fighter's Handbook too, or it could be over in Combat and Tactics, which I think was published after this. But the Complete Fighter's Handbook might have that. So you should be asking the game master if you're attacked. Is that orc wearing a helmet? If not, I need to be making a called shot to the head. It says all headgear except for which the All headgear except that which does not cover the ears must be removed when making rolls for listening. The Complete Fighter's Handbook offers optional rules for hearing and vision checks. All helmets restrict hearing and vision checks to some degree. A vision or hearing check is a 1d20 rolled against a character's intelligence or wisdom, whichever is higher. These checks can be used when a character has a chance to hear or see something of importance. This check isn't used when characters listen at doors. That has its own check. We do not have unified action mechanics here. Listening at a door is its own check. Listening for something else is done in a different way. Optionally, great helms and closed-faced helmets, when worn with plate armor, gain bonuses against Dragon's Breath and spells that affect the eyes. See the equipment section of the Complete Fighter's Handbook. Helmets and thieves. Thieves suffer automatic penalties to hearing if a helmet is worn. The following descriptions include penalties to hearing and vision checks. If these rules are not used, the penalties for vision checks should be ignored. For hearing checks, substitute a -5 penalty on the thief's hear noise ability for each -1 hearing modifier. For example, a -3 becomes -15. Yeah, we didn't talk. It didn't have Pavis in here, did it? Genoeve's crossbowman would carry a Pavis to provide cover, not a tower shield. Oh, it looks more like a Pavis. Yeah, that was not covered in here. Lynn says, if I recall right, all shields do in 5e is add +1 or +2, depending on the size. I can believe that. Yeah, the shield being mobile cover, right? Yeah, a kite shield has a pointier bottom and can't be set up as an independent cover like a Pavis. If there's a real-world example and you're trying to be exhaustive as this book seems to want to be, why would you not use the real-world example? You would think, yeah, you would have a picture, especially of a Pavis, and a guy set up behind it to talk about in this book. You would definitely think you would see that in this section. A cap is a padded leather or steel skull helm, much like a close-fitted cap, beret, or bonnet. Caps are usually worn with padded armor, leather, studded leather, hide, or any other lightweight protection. -1 penalty to hearing checks, no penalty to vision checks. Coif. A coif is a padded chain mail hood. It fits snugly around the neck and over the head except for the face. It usually comes with a built into a suit of chainmail or mail-based armor. Often a heavily armored knight will wear a chainmail coif under a great helm. This allows him to remove the great helm for a better view of the field while maintaining a fair level of head protection. Hearing and vision. Identical vision and hearing check penalties as those associated with a cap above. If a great helmet is worn, the penalties are associated for the great helm and not cumulative for those with the coif. Open-faced helmet. This class of open-faced helmet made of reinforced leather or metal covers most of the head save for the face and neck. These helmets commonly provide protection for the nose. This piece of the helmet is called the nasal. Open-face helmets are popular with officers and leaders who are appropriately worn with medium-weight armors like brigandine and chainmail. -1 penalty to vision checks. Why does an open-face helmet give you a -1 penalty to vision checks? -2 penalty to hearing checks. Such helmets cover the ears entirely except for a small hole. Okay. Closed-faced helmets. The closed-faced helmets are identical to the open-faced helmets above, but include a visored faceplate. They tend to be worn by officers and sergeants at arms. They are most commonly worn with plate mail. When the visor is up, vision and hearing checks are identical to those with open-face helmets. When you move your visor up, why does that influence your vision? Otherwise, the visored wearer suffers -2 penalty to all vision checks and -3 to hearing checks. A great helm. Yeah, see, this just seems added on. Hey, shouldn't we have something about helmets? The great helm. A great helm is any massive metal helm that covers the entire head, including the neck and often the upper shoulders. The only gaps in the protection are found in the narrow slits that allow limited vision and some small holes permitting breathing. The visor is not normally removable. It's rare to find a great helm used with armor lighter than banded mail. Great helms are often found in combination with plate mail or heavier armor. -3 to vision, -4 to hearing. It does make me want to know about called shots. Nope, that's priest. Yeah, here's the complete fighter's handbook. Does this have called shots in here? Complete fighter's handbook. New combat rules. Let's see. Style specialization, fighting styles. No, called shots. Yep, called shots is in here. It does seem rather arbitrary. It seems like somebody went, we never really covered helmets in AD&D. Shouldn't you be wearing a helmet? So you can, so if you saw somebody who wasn't wearing a helmet, take a look at the dungeon. It says, take a look at the Dungeon Master's Guide, page 58. There you'll find a rule called called shots under hitting a specific target. Oh, okay. So that's in the Dungeon Master's Guide. As you'll see in those rules, when you wish to make a called shot, you announce this before initiative is rolled, and you receive a +1 penalty to your initiative. Then, when your turn comes up in combat, you suffer a -4 penalty to your attack roll. Naturally, you can take called shots with melee, thrown, and missile weapons, and even with missile-like spells such as Magic Missile. Called shots can be used for a variety of purposes. The most important of these are disarming a weapon, striking a specific body part, smashing something being held, bypassing armor, and special results. So striking a specific body part is relevant here. As mentioned in the DMG, again, under hitting a specific target, what a weird way to be writing all this. The normal AD&D game is not geared toward a hit location system which chronicles where every blow lands and which body part gets injured. We'll be presenting some options for that sort of thing later in this chapter, but this section concerns something slightly different. Monsters often have a body part or features with extremely extraordinary or magical effects. So actually, I'm looking for the helmet kind of thing. Bypassing armor. Bypassing armor. This option is not present to let heroes bypass or ignore the AC value of normal armor. If that were allowed, all PCs and monsters would be using called shots, the called shot maneuver exclusively, which would be very annoying. No. Bypassing armor option is used when the GM has introduced a monster or enemy which cannot be beaten anyway except through the discovery and exploitation of its weak spot. Like Talus, the invulnerable bronze man in Greek myth, these monsters are impossible to damage. This usually is expressed as a monstrous AC and invulnerability to any but the most powerful magical weapons, +4 or better. However, each one has its weak spot. The weak spots are always visible to the eye. Okay, so you can take a called shot to that. So I just said -4 to hit. So maybe a called shot to the head is -4. Okay, here's the head must be hit with a called shot and an additional -4 to hit. It says additional -4 to hit. So if you're not wearing a helmet, it's going to be that guy's AC plus -4. That's kind of weird too. Wait, what? Magic Missile? That's what it said, right? I thought the same thing as I was reading by that. It says called shots with melee, thrown, and missile weapons, and even with missile-like spells such as Magic Missile. Naturally, you can take called shots with melee, thrown, and missile weapons, and even with with weapon-like spells such as Magic Missiles. So yeah, that's what it said there. Lord Fullmind, that's what I was thinking. Called shot was -4 to hit, but against AC 10 for an unarmored head. Okay, that's the way I remembered it. So you're also confirming that too. So that's why you'd want to wear a helmet. So that would be unarmored head -10. That would give your head an AC 6, which is worse if you're wearing just AC 5 male, right? You'd always be hit in the head. So the character takes... Wait, what? General called effect shots. Now, when you take a called shot against one of these special locations, interesting things can happen. This book is written so strangely. If an attack... so what is going on? Hit locations. When using this system, the first thing to do is to calculate your character's numbered and useless numbers. Okay, calculate 25%, 1/4 of your character's hit point total. Don't count current hit points. This is starting hit points total. Round up if the fraction is 0.5 or higher. On your character sheet, near the hit point listing, write down it's not numbered, numbed, and use that number. You can use the combat sheet included at the end of this book. If the result was 0, write down 1 instead. Then calculate 50%, 1/2 of your character's hit point total. Round up if the fraction is 0.5 or higher. On your character sheet, near that, write down useless and that number. If the result was 1, write down 2 instead. Whenever you go up a level and gain new hit points, recalculate. Now, whenever you conduct combat, do so normally. And every normal blow struck is deducted from a character's hit points normally. Every normal blow struck, that is, not a blow declared aimed at a specific body location, hits the character's torso from the shoulder to the hips. However, if you make a called shot, you can make your strike at any one of the 6 body locations: head, 2 arms, 2 legs, and stun points. Stun points. This rather broad category includes the solar plexus and other nerve centers, which when struck tend to cause the victim a lot of pain. Stun points must be hit with a called shot and an additional -4 to hit. So when a character takes a numbed or useless result to his head, that's the number of hit points there. Okay, number of hit points. One of the following things takes place. The DM, not the player, chooses which one. He can randomly roll 1d6 or choose one that he fancies most. 1, blindness. The character is blinded from the pain, not injury to the eyes, until the numbness or uselessness ends. When a character is blind but still trying to defend himself, anyone attacking him gets a bonus of +4 to hit. Deafness. The character's ears are ringing until the numbness or useless ends. The character suffers no combat penalty but cannot hear orders or warnings shouted to him. Dizziness is another option, or knockdown is another option, or you can get blinded and deaf, or dizziness and knocked down. So I guess there are rules in here that could really penalize you if you are not wearing a helmet. But also, the game master probably does not want the heroes to be using those rules all the time against monsters. Let's see. I think the head would have a lower than 10 AC just because it's mobile and small in reaction to the body. Yeah, so because this is becoming rather arbitrary and not working very well. Sable says, as long as the target can see you at least. Lord Fullmind says, yeah, so it's not worth wearing a helmet for any armor set of AC 6 or worse. Lord Fullmind says that's what the -4 for called shots is supposed to simulate. There was even a harder called shot that was -8, but I don't remember the specifics. I think it was like splitting an arrow with another arrow. Yeah. So anyway, that's that. All right. I got my countdown going here. I am going to try to jump in here, going to try too fast, going to get into just working though, and then also cleaning. So working, cleaning, and clean. 25 minutes of cleaning, trying to get my office. That might be a good thing everybody do. Try to get my workspace cleaned so that then I will be able to focus and on to writing. So I hope everybody has enjoyed it today. I sure did. Fantastic discussion, as always. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being here with me this morning. I will see you tomorrow. Today's Wednesday. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow, 9:30 in the morning. Until then, be creative, be constructive, and grind on. Later.